The salvage ship Wanderer's Hope drifted through the debris field like a metal scavenger picking through cosmic bones. Captain Marcus Chen adjusted the scanner array for the third time in an hour, his weathered hands moving with practiced efficiency across the control panel. The readings were strange, too strange for a routine salvage operation in the outer rim of the Tau Ceti system. "Still getting those weird energy signatures, Captain," called out his navigator, Sarah Martinez, from her station. The young woman's voice carried a note of concern that made Marcus look up from his instruments. Sarah had been with him for 2 years, and she wasn't easily spooked. "Define weird," Marcus said, pushing back from his console and walking over to peer at her displays. The bridge of the Wanderer's Hope was cramped but efficient, every surface serving double duty as storage or equipment mounting. It wasn't much to look at, but it had been his home for the better part of a decade. The signatures are organic, but they're massive. Like, bigger than anything in our biological databases. And they're moving in patterns that suggest intelligence. Sarah highlighted several blips on her screen. "Whatever's out there, it's not debris." Marcus felt a familiar tingle at the base of his skull, the same feeling he'd gotten right before finding the Martian crystal cache that had funded his ship, or just before stumbling onto the derelict transport full of rare earth metals. His instincts had never steered him wrong in 15 years of salvage work. "Plot an intercept course," he said, settling back into the captain's chair. "But keep us at minimum safe distance. If these readings are accurate, we're dealing with something beyond our usual finds." The Wanderer's Hope changed course with a barely perceptible shift in the hum of its engines. Marcus had installed military-grade thrusters 3 years ago after a close call with pirates, and the ship could move when it needed to. As they approached the source of the energy signatures, the main viewer began to resolve shapes in the darkness ahead. What they saw made Sarah gasp audibly. The ship, if it could be called that, was unlike anything in human space. It stretched nearly 2 kilometers in length, its hull a deep purple-black that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Organic curves replaced the angular efficiency of human engineering, and what looked like breathing apparatus pulsed along its flanks. Smaller craft, equally alien in design, moved around it in complex patterns that reminded Marcus of fish schooling around a whale. "My God," Sarah whispered. "It's beautiful." Marcus had to agree. Despite its obvious alien nature, there was something magnificent about the vessel. It radiated power and grace in equal measure, and, even from their distant vantage point, he could sense the vast intelligence that must guide it. "Are we receiving any communications?" he asked, though he kept his voice calm. First contact protocols were clear: maintain distance, attempt communication, and, under no circumstances engage in hostile action. "Negative on standard frequencies," Sarah replied, her fingers dancing over her console. "But, wait, I'm picking up something on the quantum resonance bands. It's faint, but it's definitely directed at us." The main screen flickered, and, suddenly, they were no longer alone on the bridge. The figure that appeared was tall and elegant, clearly feminine despite the obvious differences from human physiology. Her skin held a faint luminescence that shifted between silver and gold, and her eyes were large and dark, filled with an intelligence that seemed to pierce straight through the viewer to examine Marcus himself. What appeared to be clothing flowed around her form like living liquid, conforming to her movements with impossible grace. When she spoke, her voice carried harmonics that bypassed the ears entirely and resonated in the bones. "Human vessel, I am Queen Zarathix of the Velnari Empire. I have been searching for one such as you." Marcus stood slowly, his mind racing. First contact with an alien species was supposed to involve teams of diplomats and scientists, not a salvage captain in the middle of nowhere. But here they were, and protocol demanded he respond. "Your Majesty," he said, offering what he hoped was an appropriately respectful bow. "I am Captain Marcus Chen of the independent vessel Wanderer's Hope. We were not aware that this system was inhabited. We mean no intrusion into your territory." The alien queen's expression shifted in what might have been amusement. "You speak formally, human. This is good. Too many of your species lack proper respect for authority." She paused, those dark eyes studying him intently. "Tell me, Captain Chen, do you believe in destiny?" The question caught Marcus off guard. I believe we make our own fate, Your Majesty. Though I admit the universe sometimes has its own plans. Wisdom, she said, and definitely smiled this time. The universe indeed has plans, and you, human, are part of mine. Sarah shot Marcus a worried glance, but he gestured for her to remain calm. Whatever was happening here, it was clearly bigger than a routine salvage operation. How may we assist you, Your Majesty? Marcus asked. Queen Zarathix moved closer to the viewer, and Marcus could see that she was standing in what appeared to be a vast organic chamber. Structures that looked grown rather than built curved away into shadows, and he caught glimpses of other figures moving in the background, her crew, presumably. My people face a crisis, Captain Chen. For generations, we have ruled this sector of space, maintaining peace and order among dozens of species. But our bloodline grows weak. Our genetic diversity has become so narrow that each generation produces fewer offspring, and those that are born often lack the strength to lead. Marcus felt a chill as he began to understand where this conversation might be heading. The scientists of my empire have searched for a solution, the Queen continued. They have studied the genetics of every species we have encountered, looking for compatibility with our own biology. Most are too alien, their genetic structure incompatible with ours. But humans. She paused, her luminescent skin shifting to a deeper gold. Humans are different. Different how? Marcus asked, though he wasn't sure he wanted to know. Your species possesses a genetic adaptability that is unique in our experience. Where other races have specialized for their environments, humans have remained generalists. Your DNA contains sequences that can interface with ours in ways we never thought possible. Sarah's sharp intake of breath was audible across the bridge. Marcus felt his mouth go dry. Your Majesty, I'm not sure I understand what you're suggesting. I think you do, Captain Chen. The Queen's voice carried a note of steel beneath its musical tones. My people have determined that human genetics, properly combined with our own, could produce offspring with the strength and adaptability needed to lead the Velnari into the future. The question is whether you will cooperate willingly. The implied threat hung in the space between ships. Marcus was acutely aware that the alien vessel could probably vaporize the Wanderer's hope without straining its engines. But something in the Queen's manner suggested she would prefer a different approach. You're asking me to. Marcus began, then stopped, unsure how to phrase the question diplomatically. I am asking you to father the heir to the Velnari throne, Queen Zarathix said bluntly. To help ensure the survival of an empire that spans 3 star systems and protects billions of lives. The silence on the bridge stretched for several seconds. Marcus felt the weight of the moment pressing down on him like a physical force. This wasn't just first contact, it was a decision that could affect the future of multiple species. Your Majesty, he said finally, this is not a decision I can make lightly. The implications are vast, yes, she interrupted. But consider this, human. Your species has only recently begun to explore beyond your home system. You know nothing of the threats that exist in deep space, the empires and entities that would see Earth as nothing more than a resource to be harvested. Under Velnari protection, humanity could grow and prosper. Without it. She let the sentence hang unfinished, but her meaning was clear. Marcus looked back at Sarah, who was staring at him with wide eyes. He could see her struggling to process what they had just heard. Hell, he was struggling to process it himself. I would need time to consider your offer, Your Majesty, Marcus said. Time is a luxury we may not have, Queen Zarathix replied. Even now, my political rivals move against me. They see my inability to produce an heir as weakness, and there are those who would challenge my rule. Should they succeed, the protection I offer your species would die with me. How long do we have? Days, perhaps a week at most. Already, Lord Commander Vexthar masses his fleets in the neighboring system. He believes the Velnari should expand through conquest rather than diplomacy. If he takes the throne, Earth will burn within a solar month. Marcus felt the blood drain from his face. He thought of the billions of people back home, going about their daily lives with no idea that their fate might rest in the hands of a salvage captain in the Outer Rim. There must be other options, he said. Other ways to, there are none, the Queen said firmly. We have searched for over a century, Captain Chen. You are the first human we have encountered who possesses the necessary genetic markers. The compatibility is extraordinary, our scientists estimate a 97% chance of successful offspring. Sarah found her voice at last. Captain, this is insane. You can't seriously be considering, what I'm considering, Marcus said quietly, is the survival of our entire species. Queen Zara Thix's expression softened slightly. I do not ask this lightly, human. In our culture, the bearing of an heir is a sacred responsibility. You would not be merely a donor of genetic material, you would be recognized as the co-parent of the future ruler of the Velnari Empire. Your status would be second only to my own. And, if I refuse? The Queen's luminous skin dimmed slightly. Then, I will respect your choice and withdraw my offer of protection for humanity. But, I cannot guarantee what will happen when Vexthar claims the throne. Marcus closed his eyes, feeling the weight of an impossible decision. When he opened them again, he found the alien queen studying him with what looked like compassion. I understand your hesitation, she said. This is not the future you planned when you woke this morning. But, sometimes fate presents us with choices that define not just our own destiny, but the destiny of others as well. I need to speak with my crew, Marcus said. Of course. But, know this, Captain Shen, whatever you decide, it must be decided soon. My enemies will not wait for your convenience. The communication ended, leaving Marcus and Sarah alone on the bridge with the impossible weight of what had just transpired. Captain, Sarah said quietly, what are we going to do? Marcus stared at the alien ship on the viewer, its organic curves pulsing with bioluminescent patterns. Somewhere in there was a being who claimed to hold the future of humanity in her hands, asking him to make a choice that no human had ever had to make before. I don't know, he admitted. God help me, I honestly don't know. But, even as he said the words, Marcus Chen was beginning to understand that he did know. The mathematics were brutal but simple, one man's sacrifice against billions of lives. His personal freedom against the survival of his entire species. The Queen was right about one thing, sometimes fate presented choices that defined destiny. The question was whether he had the courage to make the right one, even if it meant abandoning everything he had ever planned for his life. Outside the viewport, the alien fleet continued its graceful dance around the massive flagship, waiting for his answer. And, somewhere beyond the stars, Earth turned in its orbit, unaware that its future hung in the balance of a conversation between a salvage captain and an alien queen. The clock, as they say, was ticking. The War Council chamber aboard the Velnari flagship Sovereigns will hummed with tension as thick as the bioluminescent atmosphere that sustained the ship's living systems. Queen Zarathix stood at the center of the organic amphitheater, her court arranged in concentric circles around her according to rank and station. The walls themselves pulsed with a nervous rhythm, responding to the collective stress of the gathered nobles. The human has not responded, announced Lord Admiral Kethvar, his ceremonial appendages twitching with barely contained agitation. 3 days have passed since your initial contact, Your Majesty. Perhaps it is time to consider alternative solutions. Alternative solutions, repeated Queen Zarathix, her voice carrying dangerous undertones. And, what alternatives would you suggest, Admiral? We have exhausted every other species in this sector. The Thaxians were genetically incompatible, the Zorati refused to participate, and the hegemony representatives laughed at our proposal before attempting to conquer our outer colonies. Lord Commander Vexthar's image flickered to life in the center of the chamber, transmitted from his flagship 2 systems away. His scarred features bore the cold smile that had terrified enemies across 3 star systems. Your Majesty, he said, his words dripping with false respect, perhaps it is time to abandon this desperate search for genetic compatibility. The old ways of succession served our people well for millennia. If you cannot produce an heir through traditional means, then, perhaps the throne should pass to one who can. The chamber fell silent except for the steady pulse of the ship's biological functions. Several courtiers shifted nervously, while others leaned forward with predatory interest. Everyone present understood the implications of Vexthar's words. Are you challenging my rule, Commander? Queen Zarathix asked, her luminescent skin shifting to a deeper gold that signaled barely controlled anger. I am merely stating facts, Your Majesty. The Valnari Empire faces threats on multiple fronts. The hegemony masses fleets on our borders, the outer colonies report increasing raids by unknown forces, and our own genetic crisis grows more severe with each passing year. Strong leadership requires decisive action, not desperate gambles with alien species. The human is not a gamble, the Queen replied. Our scientists have confirmed genetic compatibility beyond anything we have previously encountered. The probability of successful offspring approaches certainty. If the human agrees, Vexthar countered. And if this theoretical offspring proves capable of leadership. Your Majesty places the future of our empire on the cooperation of a species that has barely mastered interstellar travel. Meanwhile, aboard the Wanderer's Hope, Markuschan sat in his quarters staring at a datapad that contained everything his ship's computers could tell him about human reproduction, genetics, and the implications of interspecies breeding. The information was limited. Humans had never encountered anything remotely like the current situation. Sarah knocked on his door for the fourth time that day. Captain? We need to talk. Come in, Marcus called, setting aside the pad and rubbing his tired eyes. He hadn't slept properly in 3 days, his mind churning through the impossible decision that lay before him. Sarah entered and took the chair across from his small desk. Her usually neat appearance showed signs of stress, wrinkled uniform, dark circles under her eyes, and the general look of someone who had been wrestling with cosmic implications. I've been monitoring communications from the alien fleet, she said without preamble. Their long-range transmitters are powerful enough that I can pick up fragments even through their encryption. Captain, there's another fleet moving toward this system. A big one. Marcus straightened in his chair. How big? At least 40 vessels, possibly more. They'll be here within 72 hours. Sarah leaned forward. Captain, I think the Queen was telling the truth about the political situation. This Vexthar she mentioned, he's coming, and he's bringing enough firepower to start a war. Or end one, Marcus said grimly. If he's planning to remove the Queen from power, he'll want to make sure there's no chance of her rallying support. There's more. Sarah pulled up a secondary display on her portable unit. I've been analyzing the quantum resonance patterns from their communications. The technology they're using is decades ahead of anything we have. Maybe centuries. If they wanted to destroy Earth, our entire fleet couldn't stop them. Marcus felt the weight of responsibility pressing down on him like a physical force. 3 days ago, his biggest concern had been whether they could afford fuel for the next salvage run. Now he held the fate of humanity in his hands. What do you think I should do? He asked quietly. Sarah was quiet for a long moment. Captain, I've served with you for 2 years. You've always put the safety of your crew first, and you've never backed down from doing what's right, even when it cost us profit. This situation, it's bigger than anything we've ever faced, but the principle is the same. The principle? Sometimes good people have to make hard choices to protect others. A soft chime indicated an incoming transmission. Marcus and Sarah exchanged glances before he activated the communication system. Queen Zarathix's image appeared on the small screen, but this time her usual composed demeanor showed cracks of strain. Captain Chen, she said without preamble, Lord Commander Vexthar's fleet has begun its final approach. We have perhaps 2 days before he arrives in this system. I need your answer. Marcus studied the alien queen's face, looking for signs of deception or manipulation. What he saw instead was genuine desperation barely held in check by royal composure. Your Majesty, before I make this decision, I need to know more about what's at stake. You mentioned that Vexthar would see Earth burned if he takes power. I need to understand why. The Queen's expression darkened. Vexthar believes in expansion through conquest. He sees species like yours as obstacles to Valnari dominance rather than potential allies. In his vision of the future, there is room for only one sentient species in this sector of space. Genocide, Sarah whispered. The systematic elimination of potential competitors, yes, the Queen confirmed. He has proposed this policy for the hegemony worlds as well. Under his rule, the Velnari Empire would become a force of destruction rather than protection. Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. And, you're certain about the genetic compatibility? About the chances of success? Our best scientists stake their reputations on it. The probability matrices are more favorable than any natural breeding among our own people has produced in the last 5 generations. What would be expected of me? Beyond the obvious biological contribution, I mean. Queen Zarathixa's manner shifted slightly, becoming more formal. You would be granted the title of Prince Consort, with all the rights and responsibilities that entails. You would help raise and educate the heir, preparing them for eventual rule. Your knowledge of human culture and capabilities would be invaluable in establishing relations between our peoples. And my freedom? You would be free to travel within Velnari space, to maintain contact with your own people, and to serve as an ambassador between our species. You would not be a prisoner, Captain Chen, but a partner in building a future for both our peoples. Marcus looked at Sarah, who nodded almost imperceptibly. He thought of Earth, spinning peacefully in its orbit, unaware of the threat approaching from the stars. He thought of the billions of people who would never know that their existence had hung in the balance of a decision made in deep space. Your Majesty, he said finally, I accept your proposal. The relief that flooded the Queen's features was unmistakable. You honor both our species with this decision, Captain Chen. The ceremony can be arranged within hours. Our scientists are prepared to begin the process immediately. Wait, Marcus said, raising a hand. I have conditions. The Queen's expression became carefully neutral. What conditions? First, I want a formal alliance between the Velnari Empire and Earth. Not just protection, but genuine partnership. Trade agreements, technology sharing, cultural exchange, the works. Agreed, though it will take time to establish formal diplomatic channels. Second, I want my ship and crew to remain independent. They're free to leave if they choose, but if they stay, they work for me, not for your empire. Also agreed. Third, and this is non-negotiable, any child we have will be raised with knowledge of both cultures. Human and Velnari. They'll understand both parts of their heritage. Queen Zarathix smiled, and, for the first time since their initial meeting, it seemed genuinely warm. Captain Chen, you continue to impress me. Your conditions are not only acceptable, they are wise. A ruler who understands multiple perspectives will be stronger than one who knows only a single culture. Then, we have an agreement, Your Majesty. We do indeed. I am transmitting coordinates for your ship to dock with ours. The ceremony will take place in 6 hours, allowing time for both practical and diplomatic preparations. The transmission ended, leaving Marcus and Sarah alone with the magnitude of what had just happened. Captain, Sarah said quietly, are you okay? Marcus stood and walked to the small viewport in his quarters, looking out at the alien fleet that would soon be his new home. I'm terrified, he admitted. But I think I'm also doing the right thing. For what it's worth, I think you are too. Sarah, I want you to record a message for Earth Command. Everything that's happened here, the decision I've made, the reasons behind it. If something goes wrong, if Vexter gets here before we can complete the ceremony, people need to know what's coming. Already done, Captain. I've been keeping detailed logs since the first contact. Marcus turned back to his navigator with a grateful smile. You're a good officer, Sarah. Better than I deserve. Just promise me something, Captain. When you're ruler of an interstellar empire, remember the little people who helped you get there. Despite everything, Marcus found himself laughing. I think I'm going to be the one doing the helping. But, yeah, I promise. As the Wanderer's Hope began its approach to the Velnari flagship, Marcus Chen tried to imagine the future that lay ahead. In a few hours, he would undergo an alien ceremony that would bind his fate to that of an empire spanning star systems. He would help create a new life that would inherit responsibilities beyond anything humans had ever imagined. But, first, he had to survive the next 72 hours. Because somewhere in the depths of space, Lord Commander Vexthar's fleet was racing toward them, carrying with it the potential destruction of everything Marcus was trying to protect. The stakes had never been higher, and the game was about to begin in earnest. The docking bay of the Sovereigns will defy every expectation Marcus had formed about alien spacecraft. Instead of cold metal corridors and harsh artificial lighting, he found himself walking through what could only be described as a living cathedral. The walls curved organically overhead, their surfaces pulsing with soft bioluminescence that responded to his presence. Tendrils of what appeared to be neural tissue traced intricate patterns through the structure, carrying information in ways that human technology couldn't begin to replicate. "Welcome aboard, Captain Chen," said Ambassador Thelnara, the Velnari diplomat who had greeted him at the airlock. She was shorter than Queen Zarathix, with skin that shifted between pale blue and silver, and her movements carried the fluid grace that seemed characteristic of her species. "Her Majesty awaits you in the preparation chambers. The ceremony will begin at the next convergence cycle." Marcus nodded, trying to process the alien time measurements. His universal translator was working overtime to convert not just language but entire conceptual frameworks. "How long is that in Earth Standard Hours?" "Approximately 4 of your hours. Enough time for the necessary preparations and for you to understand the significance of what we are about to undertake." Sarah walked beside him, her eyes wide as she took in their surroundings. The entire ship seemed alive in ways that challenged human understanding of technology and biology. "Captain," she whispered, "are you sure about this?" "No," Marcus replied honestly. "But I'm sure about the alternative." Ambassador Thelnara led them through a series of chambers that grew progressively more ornate. Each room seemed to serve multiple purposes: living quarters that doubled as laboratories, meeting spaces that functioned as gardens, corridors that provided both transportation and meditation spaces. The integration of form and function was unlike anything in human engineering. "Your species builds things," Thelnara observed, noting Marcus's fascination with the architecture. "We grow them." The Sovereign's will was not constructed, it was cultivated over centuries, shaped by the needs and personalities of those who would live within it. They passed groups of Velnari courtiers and crew members, all of whom studied Marcus with varying degrees of curiosity and concern. He could sense the weight of their attention, the knowledge that he represented something unprecedented in their history. "Ambassador," Marcus said, "what exactly does this ceremony involve? Your queen mentioned practical and diplomatic aspects, but I need to know what I'm agreeing to." Thelnara's expression became more formal. "The bonding ceremony serves multiple purposes in Velnari culture. It establishes genetic compatibility, creates emotional resonance between partners, and formally recognizes the union before the court and the people. The process itself involves both biological and psychic elements." "Psychic elements?" "Our species possesses limited telepathic abilities, Captain Chen. The bonding process creates a mental link between partners that allows for enhanced communication and understanding. It also ensures that any offspring will inherit the strongest traits from both parents." Sarah shot Marcus a worried look. "Captain, are you comfortable with someone getting inside your head?" Marcus considered the question seriously. The idea of telepathic contact was unsettling, but, given everything else he was agreeing to, it seemed like a relatively minor concern. "Will the link be permanent?" "It will fade over time if not actively maintained," Thelnara explained. "But, during the early stages of child rearing, it provides significant advantages in coordinating parental responsibilities." They reached what appeared to be a living suite of rooms, the walls softly curved and glowing with warm light. The furniture seemed to have grown from the floor, shaped to accommodate human proportions but clearly adapted from Velnari designs. "These quarters have been prepared for you, Captain Chen," Thelnara said. "The ceremony will take place in the royal sanctum in 4 hours. Until then, I recommend rest and preparation. The process can be intensive." After the ambassador left, Marcus and Sarah found themselves alone in the alien quarters. The silence stretched uncomfortably as both tried to process the magnitude of what was about to happen. "Captain," Sarah finally said, "I've been thinking about the political implications of all this. If you go through with this ceremony, you're not just entering into a personal relationship, you're essentially becoming royalty in an alien empire. That's going to have consequences for Earth, for humanity as a whole. Marcus nodded, settling into what appeared to be a chair but felt more like a living support system that adjusted to his body perfectly. I know. But consider the alternative. If we do nothing, Vexthar takes power and decides humanity is a threat to be eliminated. At least this way, we have a voice in our own future. And if the child you're supposed to father can't handle the responsibility? Or if they're more alien than human in their thinking? That's why I insisted on shared cultural heritage. This kid is going to understand both sides of their nature. Marcus paused, staring at his hands. Sarah, I need you to understand something. I'm not doing this because I want to. I'm doing it because someone has to, and the universe decided that someone is me. Before Sarah could respond, the chamber's communication system activated. Queen Zarathix's image appeared, but this time she was dressed in what could only be ceremonial garments. The flowing materials that normally covered her form had been replaced by something that looked like living jewelry, intricate patterns that moved and shifted across her skin like conscious art. Captain Shen, she said, I wanted to speak with you privately before the ceremony begins. What we are about to undertake is unprecedented in Velnari history. No outsider has ever been elevated to the status you will hold. Your Majesty, I want to make sure I understand what's expected of me. Beyond the biological aspects, what role will I play in your court? You will serve as my advisor on matters concerning humanity and other developing species. Your perspective will be invaluable as we work to integrate Earth into the broader galactic community. You will also help shape our policies regarding first contact with new species. Marcus felt a weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders. And the child? Will inherit both your adaptability and our strength? The combination should produce an individual capable of leadership in ways that neither of our species could achieve alone. The Queen's expression softened slightly. Captain, I want you to know that this is not a cold political calculation for me. The survival of my people depends on this union, but I also believe it represents hope for both our species. Your Majesty, there's something I need to tell you. My people don't know about any of this yet. When word gets back to Earth about what's happening here, there's going to be panic, confusion, maybe even hostility. Humans don't react well to the unknown. I understand. That is why the formal alliance I'm prepared to offer will include cultural exchange programs, joint scientific ventures, and gradual introduction of our peoples to each other. We will not repeat the mistakes that led to the current crisis with the hegemony. The transmission ended, leaving Marcus with more questions than answers but also with a growing sense that he was making the right choice. The universe had presented him with an impossible situation, but at least he was choosing the path that offered hope rather than certain destruction. An hour before the ceremony was scheduled to begin, alarms began sounding throughout the ship. The bioluminescent walls shifted to a deep red, and the comfortable warmth of the quarters was replaced by an atmosphere of urgent tension. Ambassador Thelnara burst into the chamber without ceremony. Captain Shen, we have a problem. Vexthar's fleet has arrived early. They're demanding that Her Majesty surrender herself for judgment by the High Council. How early? Marcus asked, already knowing the answer wouldn't be good. They're here now. 43 warships, including Vexthar's flagship Iron Conquest. They've surrounded us and are demanding immediate response. Sarah was already at her portable sensor array, analyzing the tactical situation. Captain, these readings are off the charts. Each of those ships is carrying enough firepower to level a city. We're completely outgunned. What about the ceremony? Marcus asked. Can we complete it before Vexthar has specifically demanded that any contamination of the royal bloodline be prevented? Thelnara said grimly. He knows what we're planning. Marcus felt the walls closing in around them. They had been so close to success, so close to securing humanity's future, and now it was all falling apart. Can the Queen's forces fight? We have 12 ships to their 43. The battle would be over in minutes. Then, we surrender? If we surrender, Vexthar will eliminate both you and
Her Majesty to prevent any future challenge to his authority.
Surrender means death for everyone involved in this plan. Marcus stood and began pacing the small chamber, his mind racing through possibilities and finding nothing but dead ends. Then, an idea began to form, crazy, desperate, but possibly their only chance.
Thalnara, how long would the ceremony take if we started right now? In its abbreviated form, perhaps 30 minutes.
But, Captain, the ritual chamber is in the most protected part of the ship.
If fighting begins, then, we'd better make sure it doesn't begin until after we're finished. Marcus turned to Sarah. I need you to get back to our ship.
Prepare for emergency departure and send that message to Earth Command immediately.
If this goes wrong, Earth needs to know what's coming. Captain, I'm not leaving you. Yes, you are. That's an order.
Marcus's voice carried the authority that had made him a successful captain.
Someone needs to get word back to Earth about what's happening here. That someone is you.
Sarah looked like she wanted to argue, but she knew better than to challenge Marcus when he used that tone.
Yes, sir.
Good luck, Captain.
As Sarah left for the docking bay, Marcus turned to Thalnara. Take me to the Queen. If we're going to do this, we need to do it now.
Captain Chen, you should know that if Vexthar's forces breach the ship during the ceremony, the process cannot be interrupted without severe consequences to both participants.
Once begun, it must be completed. Understood. Let's go make some history.
As they hurried through the corridors of the Sovereign's will, Marcus could hear the ship's defensive systems powering up. The soft bioluminescence was replaced by harder, more urgent lighting, and the peaceful atmosphere was shattered by the sound of weapons being prepared for battle.
Somewhere above them, Lord Commander Vexthar's fleet waited for a response to their ultimatum.
In a few minutes, they would demand action, and the delicate balance of power that had kept this sector of space peaceful for centuries would shatter.
But, first, there was a ceremony to complete and a future to secure.
Marcus Chen, salvage captain from Earth, was about to become the most important human being in the galaxy, whether he survived the next hour or not. The royal sanctum existed at the heart of the Sovereign's will, a chamber that predated the current ship by centuries. As Marcus followed Ambassador Thalnara through the final security barriers, he realized that this wasn't just a room, it was a living shrine, grown from the same genetic template that had produced the first Velnari queens thousands of years ago. The walls pulsed with deep, rhythmic light that matched the heartbeat of something vast and ancient. Organic spires twisted upward toward a ceiling that seemed to extend beyond normal spatial boundaries, and the air itself hummed with energies that made Marcus's skin tingle. This was a place where biology and technology had merged so completely that the distinction had become meaningless. Queen Zarathix stood at the center of the chamber, no longer the composed diplomat he had spoken with over communications. The ceremonial garments she wore seemed to be part of her now, living extensions that enhanced her natural bioluminescence until she appeared to glow from within. Around her, arranged in precise geometric patterns, stood the high priestesses of the Velnari, ancient beings whose role was to oversee the most sacred rituals of their people.
Captain Chen, the Queen said as he approached, Lord Commander Vexthar has given us 1 hour to surrender.
His forces are already moving into attack formation.
Then, we'd better work fast, Your Majesty.
The lead priestess stepped forward, her age evident in the way her natural luminescence had deepened to an almost purple intensity. When she spoke, her voice carried harmonics that seemed to resonate in the chamber's living walls.
Human, she said, are you prepared to bind your genetic destiny to the Velnari bloodline? To accept responsibility for the future of an empire that spans the stars?
Marcus felt the weight of history pressing down on him. This was the moment of no return. Once the ceremony began, there would be no backing out, no changing his mind if circumstances shifted.
I am. Then, let us begin before the universe decides otherwise.
The ceremony that followed challenged everything Marcus thought he knew about biology, consciousness, and the nature of life itself. The priestesses arranged him and the queen at specific points within a complex geometric pattern that had been grown into the chamber's floor. As they began their ritual chanting, the walls responded by increasing their bioluminescent output until the entire chamber blazed with living light. The bonding process will create a temporary merger of consciousness, Queen Zarathix explained as energy began to flow between the ceremonial positions. You will experience my memories, my emotions, my understanding of what it means to rule. I will gain access to your human perspectives, your species' unique approaches to problem solving. Marcus felt the first touch of alien thought against his mind like cool water flowing into a drought-stricken landscape. The sensation was overwhelming. Suddenly, he could perceive the ship not as a vessel but as an extension of living will, could sense the emotional states of the crew members scattered throughout its corridors, could feel the approaching threat of Vexthar's fleet like a weight pressing against his consciousness. But, more than that, he began to understand what it meant to be Queen Zarathix. Through her memories, he experienced the crushing weight of responsibility that came with ruling an interstellar empire. He felt the pain of watching her people slowly decline as their genetic diversity narrowed generation by generation. He understood her desperate search for a solution that would preserve not just the royal bloodline but the very survival of Velnari civilization. And, in return, she experienced his memories of Earth, the blue-green world spinning in space, humanity's struggles to understand their place in the universe, the simple courage of ordinary people doing extraordinary things. She felt his love for the vast emptiness of space, his satisfaction in finding value in what others had discarded, his growing understanding that sometimes the most important decisions were made not by governments or generals but by individuals willing to step forward when history demanded it. The genetic bonding began as the mental connection deepened. Marcus felt his cellular structure being analyzed, mapped, and gradually integrated with Velnari biological patterns. The process wasn't painful, but it was profoundly alien, like feeling his body being rewritten at a fundamental level while his consciousness expanded to accommodate perceptions no human had ever experienced. "It is working," breathed one of the priestesses. "The compatibility is beyond our most optimistic projections." Through the shared consciousness, Marcus felt the Queen's amazement. The genetic merger was proceeding with unprecedented success, creating patterns that combined the best traits of both species while eliminating the weaknesses that had plagued Velnari reproduction for centuries. But, even as the ceremony reached its crucial phase, alarms began sounding throughout the ship. "Your Majesty," came Admiral Kethvar's voice over the communication system, "Vexthar's fleet has begun moving to attack positions. He's demanding immediate surrender of both yourself and the human. We have perhaps 10 minutes before they open fire." Queen Zarathix's shared consciousness carried waves of determination and fear. The ceremony was at its most critical juncture. Interruption now could kill both participants and destroy any chance of successful offspring. "Continue," she commanded, both aloud and through their mental link. "Whatever happens, we complete this." Outside the sanctum, Marcus could feel the ship's defenses coming online. The Sovereigns will had weapons that could devastate planets, but, against 43 enemy warships, even its awesome power would not be enough. The math was simple and brutal. Through his expanded awareness, Marcus sensed something else, panic spreading through the corridors as crew members realized the hopelessness of their situation. These were people who had served the royal family for generations, and now they faced death or subjugation simply for being present during humanity's first step toward galactic significance. The bonding reached completion with a sensation like lightning flowing through every nerve in his body. Marcus gasped as his consciousness snapped back to purely human limitations, leaving him dizzy and disoriented but fundamentally changed. He could still sense the Queen's presence in his mind, fainter now but persistent, a connection that would last as long as either of them lived. "It is done," announced the lead priestess. "The genetic integration has exceeded all projections. Offspring produced from this union will possess capabilities beyond either parent species." Queen Zarathix swayed slightly as the ceremonial energy faded, but her expression carried triumph and relief. "Captain Chen, Marcus, the future of both our peoples is now secure." Before Marcus could respond, the chamber shook as the first enemy weapons struck the ship's shields. The Sovereign's will's defensive systems engaged automatically, returning fire with devastating effect, but everyone present knew it was a delaying action at best. "Your Majesty," Admiral Kethvar's voice carried new urgency, "Lord Commander Vexthar is hailing us personally. He demands to speak with you immediately." "Put him through," the Queen commanded. The main display activated, showing the bridge of the Iron Conquest. Lord Commander Vexthar stood at its center, his scarred features twisted with cold fury. Behind him, Marcus could see tactical displays showing the positions of the Velnari ships, completely surrounded and hopelessly outgunned. Zarathix, Vexthar said, dispensing with any pretense of respect, you have disgraced our entire species with this abomination. Surrender yourself and the human, and I will grant your followers the mercy of quick deaths. I am still your queen, Vexthar, she replied, her voice carrying absolute authority despite their tactical situation. And I have secured the future of our people in ways your limited vision could never comprehend.
By contaminating our bloodline with alien genetics? By reducing the proud Velnari to mongrels?
Vexthar's image leaned forward.
You are no longer fit to rule.
The High Council will strip you of authority and name me as your successor.
The High Council, Queen Zarathix said calmly, has no authority to remove a queen who has successfully produced an heir.
And, as of moments ago, that is precisely what has occurred. Marcus saw Vexthar's expression shift from confidence to uncertainty. Through his mental link with the queen, he understood the implications. Velnari law was absolute on this point. A ruling monarch who successfully produced genetic offspring could not be removed from power except through direct military conquest.
Impossible, Vexthar snarled. No offspring have been born. But the genetic bonding is complete, and conception is guaranteed.
By our own laws, my position is now unassailable. The queen's smile was sharp as a blade. Unless, of course, you're prepared to openly rebel against millennia of Velnari tradition. Marcus watched as Vexthar struggled with the legal implications. The commander had built his challenge on the premise that the queen could not produce an heir. With that premise destroyed, his position became significantly more complicated. But Marcus could see in the alien's expression that legal niceties would not stop him now. Vexthar had come too far and committed too much to back down based on technicalities. Laws can be changed, Vexthar said finally. And traditions can be abandoned when they threaten the survival of our people. You have 1 minute to surrender, or I will take what I came for by force. The transmission ended, leaving them with the sound of weapons charging and the knowledge that their situation had just become impossible.
Your Majesty, Marcus said, is there any chance your fleet can break through their line?
None. We are outnumbered 4-1, and Vexthar commands some of the finest warships in our space. She paused, studying the tactical display with the eye of someone who had commanded fleets before ascending to the throne.
But there may be another option. What option? Queen Zarathix turned to him with an expression that combined royal authority with desperate hope.
You are now Prince Consort of the Velnari Empire, with all the rights and responsibilities that title carries.
One of those rights is the authority to call upon the ancient defense protocols of our people. I don't understand.
There are weapons aboard this ship that have not been used in over 1,000 years. Weapons that were sealed because they were too powerful, too dangerous for conventional warfare. They can only be activated by direct royal command, and only when the survival of the Empire itself is at stake. Marcus felt a chill as he understood what she was suggesting.
What kind of weapons?
The kind that could level star systems if misused. The kind that our ancestors created during the First Galactic Wars and swore never to use again unless faced with extinction. Through their mental link, Marcus felt the weight of what she was proposing. These weren't just weapons, they were instruments of genocide, created during a darker period of Velnari history when survival had demanded moral compromises that still haunted their people. The choice is yours, Marcus, Queen Zarathix said quietly.
You have the authority to activate them.
But know that doing so will change both of us forever. There are some lines that, once crossed, can never be uncrossed.
Outside, Vexthar's fleet was moving into final attack formation.
In seconds, they would open fire with enough force to reduce the Sovereign's will to cosmic debris. The future of two species hung in the balance, waiting for a salvage captain from Earth to make a decision that would echo across the galaxy for generations to come. Marcus stared at the tactical display showing Vexthar's fleet in attack formation, feeling the weight of an impossible decision pressing down on him. Through his mental link with Queen Zarathix, he could sense the ancient weapons she spoke of, massive systems integrated into the very structure of the ship, dormant for centuries but still capable of unimaginable destruction.
There has to be another way, he said, even as enemy weapons began their final targeting sequences.
Marcus, the Queen said gently, sometimes leadership means choosing between terrible options. You can activate weapons that will save our lives but violate every moral principle you hold dear, or you can maintain your ethics and watch as both our species face extinction under Vexthar's rule.
The chamber shook again as the enemy fleet intensified their bombardment.
The Sovereign's will shields were holding, but Marcus could feel them weakening with each impact. They had perhaps 2 minutes before the ship's defenses failed completely. Then, through the shared consciousness that still connected him to the Queen, Marcus felt something unexpected, a presence approaching from beyond the system's edge.
Something vast and familiar. "Your Majesty," he said suddenly, "how good are your long-range sensors?" "Excellent." "Why?" "I want you to scan the outer system. Look for human energy signatures."
Queen Zarathix gestured to one of the priestesses, who activated a bioorganic control interface grown into the chamber's living walls. The ship's sensor array extended its reach, probing the depths of space beyond the immediate battlefield. "I'm detecting multiple human vessels," the Queen said, surprise evident in both her voice and their mental link. "3 ships, moving at maximum velocity toward our position." Marcus felt a grim smile spreading across his face.
"Sarah made it back to our ship. And she did exactly what I hoped she would do." "I don't understand."
"My navigator has a bad habit of ignoring direct orders when she thinks she knows better. I told her to head for Earth, but she's bringing backup instead." The sensor readings resolved into clearer detail. The approaching ships were human military vessels, a heavy cruiser and 2 destroyer escorts from the Colonial Defense Force. They were still hours away at current speed, but their presence changed the tactical equation significantly.
3 ships cannot stand against Vexthar's fleet, Queen Zarathix pointed out. "Not in direct combat, no. But they don't need to win the battle. They just need to create enough chaos for us to escape."
Marcus's mind was racing through possibilities.
"Your Majesty, can this ship survive in the gravity well of the system's star?" "For a limited time, yes.
Our shielding can withstand stellar radiation that would destroy most vessels."
"Then, that's our destination. And I think I know how to get us there."
Before the Queen could ask what he meant, Marcus was already moving toward the chamber's communication array. "This is Prince Consort Marcuschan of the Velnari Empire, calling Captain Reyes of the UES Valiant." The response came immediately.
"Marcus? Thank God you're alive. Sarah briefed us on the situation.
We're moving to assist, but we won't reach your position for another 4 hours."
"Understood, Captain. I need you to do exactly what I tell you, and I need you to do it without asking questions." "You've got it. What do you need?" "In 3 minutes, I want you to fire everything you've got at the enemy flagship. Not to destroy it, but to get their attention. Make them think you're the primary threat. Marcus, 3 ships against 43 is suicide. Not if you're not planning to stick around for the fight. After you fire, I want you to execute an emergency jump to these coordinates."
Marcus transmitted the location of the system's inner asteroid belt.
"Hide in the debris field and wait for my signal." "And then?"
"Then, we spring the most desperate plan in human history." Marcus cut the communication and turned to Queen Zarathix.
"Your Majesty, I'm going to need you to trust me completely.
What I'm about to suggest goes against every rule of space combat, but it's our only chance."
"Tell me." "We're going to hide inside the star." The Queen's expression showed she understood the implications immediately. The gravitational forces alone would tear most ships apart. Most ships, yes. But the Sovereign's will isn't most ships.
It's a living vessel with adaptive capabilities no human technology can match. If we can survive long enough in the stellar corona, Vexthar will assume we're dead. He'll consolidate his forces to hunt down the human ships, which gives us the opening we need.
And when we emerge, we won't be alone.
Through the ship's communication system, Marcus could hear Admiral Kethvar coordinating the final defensive preparations. The Velnari fleet was taking heavy damage, but they were fighting with the desperation of people who knew defeat meant extinction. "Your Majesty," came the Admiral's voice, "our shields are failing." We have perhaps 60 seconds before the attack was interrupted by a brilliant flash of light as the human fleet opened fire from the system's edge. Captain Reyes had followed Marcus's instructions perfectly. Instead of targeting multiple ships, all 3 human vessels concentrated their fire on Vexthar's flagship. The Iron Conquest staggered under the unexpected assault, its shields flaring as they absorbed energies meant to cripple capital ships. "What?" Vexthar's voice exploded across the communication channels. "Where did those ships come from?" Marcus felt a savage satisfaction as he watched the enemy fleet's formation dissolve into chaos. Vexthar had planned for a siege against a trapped enemy, not a 3-front battle against vessels with nothing to lose. "Now," Marcus said to Queen Zarathix, "take us into the star." The Queen's commands flowed through the ship's living neural networks like lightning through organic circuits. The Sovereigns will banked away from the battle, its bio-adaptive hull beginning the complex modifications needed to survive stellar immersion. Behind them, Vexthar's forces were torn between pursuing the fleeing flagship and engaging the human ships that continued to dart in and out of weapons range like cosmic wasps. "He's taking the bait," Queen Zarathix observed as enemy ships moved to intercept the human fleet. "But, Marcus, even if we survive the stellar environment, how does hiding help us win this battle?" "Because while we're hiding, I'm going to make a few more calls." The Sovereigns will plunge toward the system's star, its organic hull adapting in real time to the increasing radiation and gravitational stress. Marcus felt the ship's pain through his neural link with the Queen, but also its determination to survive. This was what separated Velnari vessels from human technology. They weren't just tools, they were partners. As they entered the outer layers of the stellar corona, Marcus activated the ship's quantum communication array. The energy required was enormous, but the star's own radiation provided camouflage that made detection impossible. "This is Prince Consort Marcus Chen," he transmitted on emergency frequencies that would reach every human colony within 50 light-years. "I am declaring a code black emergency. All available vessels are to proceed immediately to the Tau Ceti system. The survival of humanity depends on your response." The replies came quickly: cargo haulers, mining ships, colonial transports, even private yachts acknowledging the emergency call. None of them were warships, but that didn't matter. Marcus wasn't planning a conventional battle. "Your Majesty," he said, turning to Queen Zarathix, "how many ships would it take to make Vexthar reconsider his position? His fleet is powerful, but it's designed for precision strikes against military targets. Against a large number of civilian vessels." She paused as understanding dawned. "You're not planning to fight him. You're planning to overwhelm him with targets. Every human ship in this sector is going to jump into this system in the next 6 hours. Vexthar will find himself facing hundreds of vessels, most of them carrying civilians and families. Even if he could destroy them all, the political cost would be astronomical. And the moral cost," the Queen added softly. "Vexthar may be ambitious, but he's not a monster. Genocide against innocents would turn every species in this sector against the Velnari Empire." The ship shuddered as they reached the deepest point of their stellar immersion. Outside, temperatures that could vaporize mountains washed over hull plating that had evolved over millennia to survive the impossible. Marcus felt the Queen's wonder through their link as she experienced human strategic thinking, not the elegant complexity of Velnari planning, but the chaotic adaptability that had carried humanity from a single world to the stars. "There's something else," Marcus said. "Something I need to tell you before this goes any further." "What?" "I've been thinking about what it means to be the father of the future Velnari ruler. About what kind of galaxy I want that child to inherit." Queen Zarathix's attention focused on him completely, both through their words and their mental link. "I don't want our child to rule through fear or military dominance. I want them to lead because they understand that true strength comes from protecting those who can't protect themselves. That includes humans, Velnari, and every other species we encounter." "You're suggesting a fundamental change in how we approach galactic politics." "I'm suggesting that maybe it's time for the Velnari Empire to become something different. Not just a collection of conquered worlds, but a genuine alliance of equals working together. Through their shared consciousness, Marcus felt the Queen's consideration of this idea. It challenged everything she had been taught about leadership, but it also offered possibilities that pure military dominance could never achieve. The child will need to be strong enough to implement such changes, she said finally. They will be. Human adaptability combined with Valnari wisdom and power, they'll be capable of things neither of our species could accomplish alone. The ship's sensors detected massive gravitational disturbances as dozens of human vessels began arriving in the system. Marcus's emergency call had been answered beyond his wildest hopes: cargo ships, colony transports, mining vessels, research ships, and even a few ancient warships from the early colonial period. "My God," Queen Zarathix whispered, watching the tactical display. "There are over 200 ships out there. And more coming every hour." Vexthar's fleet found itself in an impossible situation. The human civilian vessels weren't attacking, they were simply present, filling space with their innocent existence. Destroying them would be mass murder on a scale that would haunt galactic politics for centuries. But ignoring them meant accepting that his carefully planned coup had become a chaotic mess with dozens of witnesses. "Your Majesty," Admiral Kethvar's voice reached them through quantum transmission, "Lord Commander Vexthar is requesting immediate communication with you. His entire fleet has powered down weapons." "Put him through," the Queen commanded. Vexthar appeared on the display, but his earlier confidence had been replaced by barely controlled frustration. "Zarathix, what is the meaning of this circus? You cannot hide behind civilian shields forever." "I'm not hiding, Vexthar. I'm demonstrating the difference between our approaches to leadership." Queen Zarathix's voice carried absolute authority. "You brought instruments of war to settle a political dispute. I brought hope for the future." "These alien ships mean nothing, they mean everything," Marcus interrupted, stepping into view. "Every ship out there represents families, communities, people who heard that humanity was in danger and came to help. That's the kind of galaxy I want my child to inherit, one where species help each other instead of conquering each other." Vexthar's scarred features twisted with contempt. "Your child will be an abomination, human. A mongrel with no place in the natural order. My child," Marcus said calmly, "will be the bridge between our peoples. And they'll have the strength to build the kind of future that neither of our species could create alone." The stalemate stretched for several minutes as Vexthar wrestled with his options. Finally, his shoulders sagged in defeat. "I cannot fire on civilian vessels," he admitted. "The political consequences would destroy everything I've worked for." "Then, stand down your fleet and accept the legitimacy of my rule," Queen Zarathix commanded. "The High Council will accept the reality of the situation. I have produced an heir, secured an alliance with a new species, and demonstrated that the future belongs to cooperation rather than conquest." The Queen's voice softened slightly. "Vexthar, you've served our people well for decades. Don't let ambition destroy that legacy." The defeated commander stared at them for a long moment before responding. "I withdraw my challenge to your authority, Your Majesty. But know that I still believe this path will lead to the destruction of our people. Time will prove which of us is right." The transmission ended, leaving Marcus and Queen Zarathix alone in the stellar depths with the knowledge that they had won, not through superior firepower, but through the simple human concept that sometimes the best way to fight is to refuse to fight at all. 6 months later, Marcus stood in the nursery chamber of the Sovereign's will, watching his daughter sleep in her bioorganic cradle. Princess Zarachin was the most remarkable being he had ever seen. Her skin held the faint luminescence of her mother's people, but her features were a perfect blend of human and Valnari traits. When she opened her eyes, they held an intelligence that seemed to comprehend far more than any infant should be capable of understanding. "She's going to change everything," Queen Zarathix said, joining him at the cradle. Their mental link had deepened over the months, creating a partnership that transcended the purely biological. "That was always the plan," Marcus replied. "The question is whether the galaxy is ready for the kind of changes she'll bring." Through the nursery's transparent walls, he could see the mixed fleet that had become their permanent escort, Valnari warships flying alongside human cargo vessels, sharing patrol duties and learning from each other. It was a small symbol of the larger changes taking place throughout this sector of space.
Earth had established its first embassy on the Velnari homeworld.
Trade agreements were being negotiated between species that had never spoken before. And, in the deepest laboratories of both civilizations, scientists worked together to understand the genetic miracle that had produced Princess Zarachan. Lord Commander Vexthar requested an audience, the Queen mentioned.
He wants to meet his future ruler.
And I approve the request. Despite our disagreements, he's still one of the finest military minds in our space. She'll need advisors who understand both old ways and new ones.
Marcus nodded, understanding the wisdom in the decision.
Their daughter would inherit a galaxy full of challenges and opportunities in equal measure. She would need all the help she could get. Princess Zarachan stirred in her cradle, her luminescent skin flickering with patterns that seemed almost like communication. For a moment, Marcus could have sworn he felt her consciousness brush against his through the mental link he shared with her mother, a touch that carried curiosity, love, and a strength that already surpassed anything either parent species had produced alone. The salvage captain from Earth who had stumbled into galactic politics smiled as he watched his daughter dream. The universe had presented him with an impossible choice, and somehow he had found a way to turn it into hope for the future. Outside the ship's windows, stars wheeled in their ancient courses, indifferent to the small dramas of organic life. But, somewhere among those distant lights, new alliances were forming, new friendships were being forged, and the galaxy was slowly becoming a place where different species could work together instead of fighting each other. It wasn't the future Marcus had planned when he woke up that morning 6 months ago. But, it was a future worth fighting for, worth sacrificing for, and worth passing on to the remarkable child who would someday guide it toward even greater possibilities. The heir to the Velnari throne slept peacefully in her cradle, dreaming dreams that spanned the stars.